Outreach Officer at Jamaicans for Justice. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. So, unfortunately, Mikkel won't be able to join us this week. Mikkel is my usual co host on the show. So, we have Nick here from the JFJ team to help fill that gap.
I am.
All right, so today our topic is focused on your data, your rights. We were to have Mr. Chukwemeka Cameron, attorney at law, joining us, as well as Mr. Gary Allen, chairman of the Media Association of Jamaica, recently appointed chairman of the Media Association of Jamaica. So unfortunately, Mr. Cameron will not be able to join us, but Mr. Allen will still be able to join us at some point today. So he'll give us his perspective on the act and how it affects media practitioners. But before we get into that, we have to talk about the week that was, and something significant happened over the course of last week. We're near to the very end there. I don't know if Nicholas is aware of what that is. Do you know what it is, Nicholas?
I am. So, on Friday, the Senate, they approved a motion to formulate an elderly care and protection law to safeguard Jamaica's senior citizens. What do you feel about that?
Great. Elder protection is one of JFJ's key thematic areas. It's an area that hasn't seen a lot of traction in legislative and policy reform. So it was good to see that motion. And it was a motion by an opposition senator, Dr. Floyd Morris, and it was unanimously supported by the Senate. So that shows some good bipartisan support for a very important policy that's absolutely necessary.
It is. And I know, Jade, you would have a lot of context. You're a seasoned member of the JFJ family. So in terms of the work that we do and the services that we provide, what have we seen? Because, I know that you'd be privy to the experiences of senior citizens in Jamaica.
Well, one of the major challenges that we've seen is elder abuse, which is persons taking advantage of an elderly person physically, mentally, financially, and usually those things are impacted by the lack of support that they have in legislation. For example, I know that government senator Shireen Golden Campbell, yes. She spoke to the need, for example, for a living will or for alternatives to our power of attorney, because as we know, sometimes you get older, you develop certain deficiencies, dementia, so on. So you're not of sound mind and you're unable to give someone else the permission to take care of your affairs. So with that living will, you would have given that permission before you became ill, and then you'd be able to activate it once it is that you are ill. So there's some good proposals being discussed. I know that there is the formation of a special select committee with both opposition and government members of the Senate that should start meeting on the issue. So hopefully we'll see some good traction on that going into next year.
So we'll be watching out for it and keeping a close eye on the process.
Most certainly. Now we have our major topic, which is your data, your rights. And as a part of that, we of course have our Know Your Rights and your trivia question for this week. So I think it's either a Did You Know or a Right of the Day. I'm going to ask our producer to bring that up now. But yes, it is related to your rights in data privacy and data protection. Now, it comes from the Data Protection Act, and it speaks to how the state applies in the legislation. So essentially, the Data Protection Act applies to the government just like it would any other organization that is listed under the data protection legislation. Additionally, the government and its agencies are treated as separate entities, so they do not share responsibilities for each other's actions. However, despite all of the provisions applying to the government, one thing that does not apply is the possibility for criminal prosecution, which does apply to some other persons under the Data Protection Act. Now, we're going to get into a little bit more about the provisions before we bring in Mr. Allen, who is the chairman of the Media Association of Jamaica. Now, our trivia question for today, we have two. I'm going to start with our normal trivia question. And that is also related to our data protection regulations. So the question is, on what date did the Data Protection Act regulations come into force? So we have those associated regulatory instruments with the Act that are absolutely necessary for its operation. When did they come into force? So you can respond to that by sending a WhatsApp to 9199955, or you can respond in the chat on YouTube, or you can respond on our Instagram. Now we do have one more trivia, and that will be the case for the remainder of the shows up until the end of the year. And that trivia is related to JFJ's 25th anniversary celebration. So for this 25th anniversary trivia, the question is, where did JFJ have its first members meeting? Where did JFJ have its first members meeting? So if you get the answer correct, or you know the answer, you can place that in the chat on YouTube, respond to our Instagram, or send a WhatsApp to 9199955. So going into our substantive topic, we are talking about the Data Protection Act and those protections. Now, our Data Protection Act was passed in 2020 and it became effective December 2023. The Act operates to protect the personal data of persons and regulate how that data is handled by institutions and individuals who may hold it. Now, it's important for us to understand our rights under the Data Protection Act to also understand how our data is protected. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit about what data is protected. So I did say that you have your personal data protected. And personal data has to do with any information that a person can be identified from, and that's a living person, or if you are dead within 30 years of your death, any information that can be identifying to you. And that would include your name, your address, any contact info, any genetic information like your DNA, any sensitive personal information like your ethnicity, your criminal record, your health status, any relationships that you have. So all of those things fall into your personal data. And all of that is protected by the Data Protection Act. Now, as a data subject, you also have certain rights under the Data Protection Act. You have a right to access, you have a right to prevent processing, and you have a right to rectification. And I'm going to explain what those are quickly before the break, and then we'll ask Mr. Allen to give his perspective from the media side. Now, right to access essentially means that anyone who has your personal data, you should be able to get from them what that data is and how it is being held. Now, that information is held by a lot of people. Right. We have what are called data controllers, and that is any person or public authority who holds any other personal data that we discussed earlier. And you, as the person who has responded, whose data is being held, is the data subject. So you have that right as the data subject to access the data that the data controller is holding.
And ask how they're using it.
And ask how they're using it. You also have the right to prevent the processing of your data. And processing in the app means any way in which the data is used, moved for whatever purpose. And you have the right to object to that processing where you believe that there will be substantial damage or distress caused by it, where the processing was unlawful, so that means that it was not in line with the provisions of the legislation, or where the data has been retained longer than legal requirements. Now, there are a couple of other things that you can refuse processing for, but that is one of your rights. And one of the final things that you have a right under the Data Protection Act for is the right to rectification. And this is extremely important as it allows you to go to the data controller and edit or change information that they have that is inaccurate or incorrect. Why do you think that might be important, Nick?
I mean, it's your personal data, so you want it to be accurate as possible. So, for example, why am I going blank?
Well, yes, you do want it to be accurate as possible. And one of the things is that the Data Protection Act actually allows for persons to access your personal data, for example, for reasons of journalism or research, or for reasons of rectification of other services that are state services. So when it is that they access that data, you want to ensure that it's right and correct and up to date, so that whatever you're supposed to get, you get, and what you're not supposed to get, you don't get.
So if I'm a regular Jamaican, right?
Yeah.
And I need some of my information rectified, or I want to know how, for example, a public body is using my information. What's the process? They'll just go to that body and say, hey, I know of the Data Protection Act. I'm asking for these questions.
Absolutely, that is the process. But I will talk a little bit about that after the break. We're going to take the break now, and when we come back, we'll have Mr. Allen.
You ever hear Earthquake call and say, hello, Miss Lee, yes, it's me, Earthquake, I coming Tuesday around 10? No, sir. Earthquake does arrive unannounced, and when it come, it shake all sense and sensibility out of we. Remain calm, stay inside, and do the DCH. Drop, cover, hold on. Once the shaking starts, you know it's earthquake. Make a quick move to a safe place. Don't run to the door, we are in the exit. Stairs might broke up or full of people. Elevator, avoid that, because you might get in and poof, power gone, and you're stuck in that box without ear. Drop, cover, hold on.
A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
Unique Living's new arrivals are here. Revamp your space with sleek, fixed and sliding show panels, shower systems and faucets, stylish vanities, basins and kitchen sinks, closet and storage solutions, hanging aids and more. Available in different finishes and sizes to match your style. Visit them today and transform your space at shop number 630 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston 10. Call 876-755-3661 or visit their website at uniquelivingja.com to shop.
This is a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Labourites, we gather in St. Andrew Northwestern Monday, October 28 with MP Dr. Nigel Clark and Eric Conso-Wan at Pembroke Hall Community Centre, 6 p.m. Come here, party leader, Dr. the Honourable Andrew Holness, Dr. Nigel Clark, MPs Scott Smuda, Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, Floyd Green, Anne-Marie Val, Councillors Dwayne Smith, Andrew Harris, Vernon McLeod and others. Meeting Chairman Deputy Leader Desmond McKenzie locks it in. GLP meeting, Pembroke Hall Community Centre, Monday 6 p.m. See you there!
That was a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
All right. Thank you. We're back on Let's Talk Justice. So we mentioned before that we will be having a special guest with us to talk about the Data Protection Act in more detail. All right. So we have on with us Mr. Gary Allen. He is the chairman of the Media Association of Jamaica. Mr. Allen, are you here with us?
I am hearing you, been listening, and yes, you can say 6 days in the job.
Yes, and congratulations on your appointment.
Congrats. No, as the newly appointed chairman, I'm interested to know your thoughts. How do you think this will impact or affect media practitioners of Jamaica?
Well, I think first and foremost, the point to be made is that the personal data has come under far greater scrutiny as we have seen the liberalization of information globally. And so the protection of individuals' information, their data, that is something that is now part of the course and is now a norm. So we see it as something that is necessary, but we want to make sure that it is not something that impinges on some key critical components of our industry's life. And you have to forgive us for being sensitive because of who we are. But as media people, we want to ensure that it does not impact on freedom of expression, does not impact on media rights and freedoms. It does not curtail our ability to practice journalism, to ferret out information, to ask questions, to gather information, gain documentation, and to use that documentation that is gained in the public's interest to help with transparency and good governance in our country. So Yes, we accept that it is important, it is critical for personal data to be held in a protected way and to be used responsibly, but not to impinge on journalistic rights and freedoms and freedom of expression in our society.
Thank you for that, Mr. Allen. I know that we've seen some recent issues. I don't know how else to categorize it. With media houses that would have, for example, using the provisions under the Access to Information Act, tried to receive certain information and would have been refused on the basis of the provisions of the Data Protection Act. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, and how do you think we should be looking to respond to those challenges?
Absolutely not acceptable is our position on that. There is a set of laws that give protection to a number of areas in public life. If there is something that is used that is defamatory, there are the defamation laws that allow one to get recourse there. If you are in public life and you are using and handling and making laws as it relates to the use of the country's resources on behalf of the people, you must subject yourself to transparency in what it is you do. It is not a private venture. And therefore, once it is in furtherance of those things, our position is that it is absolutely necessary that there should be a clear hand available for media to pursue the gathering and use of information without hindrance and, may I say, without delay. Because I believe one of the major factors that could arise from how we have seen not just the access to information, which is another legislation, which is intended to enhance transparency in public life, but to then also call the Data Protection Act to bear upon whether information can be provided. We reject that in pursuit of information that's in the public interest, that either of those two legislations should be used to delay or deny access to information.
I have to say that we're certainly in agreement with that. Is it that you, or is it the Media Association of Jamaica's view that there is a need for maybe review of both these legislations in the sense of seeing how they interact with each other firstly, to ensure that they are not infringing on this necessary public information that is needed?
Well, let's take them one by one. The access to information law is almost 10 years overdue. By its own provision in the statute, is a decade overdue for review and for strengthening and for improvement, as we have looked at it and seen where things can be done better and where we can enhance things. That is supposed to happen. So yes, I believe that the delay of the review of the Access to Information Act, and especially where we have had instances where we notice that in applying for information under the Access to Information law, we tend to get run down to the last day and a half before one has to respond to actually reply to us, and then at that stage to seek extensions to provide the information or to deny the information, and then force you to have to go and appeal and to await a long appeal process to try and see how far we can get to beyond the request of the information in actually providing it. So I think that we need to review to ensure that we strengthen the process and we make it more efficient so that what is actually information that should be made available is made available in a timely manner. And if it is information that under the Access to Information Act for national security reasons or any of the components that deal with why one ought not to have the information in the public space, then say so and say so early so that we can know what the situation is there. In relation to the Data Protection Act, I think we have had a very spurious situation develop recently where there was denial of information from Tax Administration Jamaica Limited
Yes.
on two public matters which came out of an Integrity Commission report on premises that were leased, acquired, one in St. Mary and one in Manchester. And in one instance, the person, one of the persons has indicated that they were involved, which is a member of parliament, and seeking the information, which I don't even know that it was anything that would have created any negative for the person, except that it would provide information publicly. We saw where the information was being held back on the basis that under the Data Protection Act, they can't provide the information. And even where the Office of the Information Commissioner has come out and said there is nothing under the Act that says that you can't provide that information. We have seen reluctance. So we want to make sure that we do not have the Data Protection Act being used as a guise for not providing information that someone may think is too sensitive for their cause or any kind of position that they have, and to make sure it is clear that it is happening. The law is fairly fresh, so a review of it at this stage is probably premature.
Yes.
But what we need is clarity on the implementation and any area where there might be potential for divergent views, to have those clarified quickly and put into effect. Not clarified and then ignored, but put into effect.
Mr. Allen, I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And hopefully we can have you again to talk about progression in some of the issues that we've raised today. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Nick. I know Mr. Allen just shared some of the challenges that we've seen. But I do want to answer some of the concerns I'm looking at in the chat on YouTube. So, for example, a question was asked about requesting access to your medical file. And absolutely, your medical file would fall into that personal data, sensitive personal data at that you have the right to access and to get copies of, yes. Now, also under the legislation, you can have information, your personal data removed. Like you can request for that data to be removed from the possession of the data controller or deleted from the data controller. Now, of course, there's some challenges with that, depending on who the data controller is. For example, if it's law enforcement, it won't be so simple. But a healthcare provider certainly should be able to destroy your personal data upon request. And under the Data Protection Act, they have up to 30 days to comply with requests of that nature. I do also want to speak to some of the penalties that are under the legislation, because let's not think that, there are no penalties whatsoever, right? So if it is that a data controller, for example, was to release your information without your consent, which is necessary, the processing of your information is based on consent, in that case, then they can be convicted in the parish court for up to 6 months, and they can receive a fine of $2 million. And I think they can receive both as well. If it is that the data controller processes your data, so they have the data and they process the data, they can be convicted in the circuit court for up to 7 years, and there's no specific limit on the fine. Now, if the person recklessly or without the consent of the data subject, and that's you, disclose that data subject's personal data or obtains the personal data of a data subject when they should not have obtained it, that is also an offense under the legislation. And if you are caught in the parish court for that offense, that is $5 million or up to 5 years in imprisonment. And if you are caught in the circuit court, so that's the Supreme Court, that is an undefined fine. So, and the Supreme Court can give a pretty extensive fine, or up to 10 years imprisonment. Now, keep in mind, this major penalty here is for the case where the person knowingly or recklessly and without the data subject's consent obtain their personal data. Now, one thing to consider is that these fines and penalties and so on really go back towards the state. However, if you as a data subject found that your rights, any other rights that we discussed here, to have your information destroyed, to be able to access your information, to be able to limit the processing, to be able to rectify your information, and you were not able to do so within the time limit stated in the legislation, you also have the right to compensation as under the legislation. So you do have that right to compensation. The act doesn't specifically say exactly how you would get that compensation. And so the assumption is that you would have to go through a civil suit. But what it is giving you is the support, the legislative support to say once these persons have failed you, you personally also are able to bring an action. So we're up on the break. We're going to take the break now. And when we come back, we're switching gears a little bit because we have other things to discuss for the show. So we'll be back.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
34 degrees in Kingston, 30 degrees in Montego Bay.
This is a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Laborites, we gather in St. Andrew Northwestern Monday, October 28 with MP Dr. Nigel Clark and Eric Comson-Wan at Pembroke Hall Community Centre, 6 p.m. Come here, party leader, Dr. the Honourable Andrew Holness, Dr. Nigel Clark, MPs Carl Samuda, Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, Floyd Green, Anne-Marie Val, Councillors Dwayne Smith, Andrew Harris, Vernon McLeod and others. Meeting Chairman Deputy Leader Desmond McKenzie locks it in. GLP meeting, Pembroke Hall Community Centre, Monday 6 p.m. See you there!
That was a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Are you ready to turn your sales and marketing skills into high earnings? Nationwide 90FM is searching for business development executives to build lasting client relationships. If you have experience across all stages of the sales cycle and possess strong communication, negotiation, and time management skills with a proven sales track record, this opportunity is perfect for you. Join our team and work with the top corporate brands, media agencies, and of course, our on-air personalities. Enjoy networking opportunities, professional growth, and competitive commissions. Ready to take the next step? Send your resume to hr@nationwidenewsnetwork.com today.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. So we have just been discussing our data protection rights or data protection obligations as well. But we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to be talking now about a couple of things that came up last week that I think are poignant to bring forth and necessary, right? And then we're going to talk about a little bit of fun stuff towards the end. So one thing that we have to bring some attention to, again, is the migrant crisis coming out of Haiti. And I think we all know the situation in Haiti. It's an internationally recognized crisis that these persons have been experiencing, a humanitarian crisis so grave that multiple international agencies have asked for us as a region and also other nations who take in refugees not to return these persons to Haiti, even under the circumstances where by strict asylum rules they don't apply for asylum. They're asking for other measures to be implemented to ensure that they are not returned. So the situation is pretty grave. Unfortunately, we have seen a history in our response here in Jamaica that seems to not align with, one, our international obligations, but two, our obligations under our local or national refugee policy, which states that we should allow for individual assessment of every asylum case. Now, JFJ took part in a press conference this morning. The press conference was arranged by Freedom Imaginaries, who is another NGO working here in Jamaica that has been at the forefront of responding to this crisis coming out of Haiti and has been trying to seek legal support for these persons. It's headed by attorney at law Malenia Lane, and some of the things that she reported were quite concerning. The most recent case being, well, actually, do you know what the most recent case is, Nick?
I mean, obviously, I heard last week, I think about 17 Haitian nationals were rounded up and deported, no?
Right, yes. And the concern with Freedom Imaginaries, who was representing some of these persons in pending asylum consideration, so these cases have not even finished being heard as yet, is that these persons were removed without notice. So their family members and support in Jamaica were not notified that they were going to be removed. They are leaving behind children of theirs who are Jamaican children, so breaking up these families. Of course, the lack of due process, because we know that they were not able to complete the actual asylum process that they were going through. The case has not finished being heard as yet. And then 4 of those who were deported were women. And one of the things that the UN has pointed out is the disproportionate risk to women and children. So we are sending these persons back to be further victimized in this situation. So it was one of the things that we highlighted in the press conference. A lot of other persons spoke, including representatives directly from Haiti. The conference was done in both languages, in Haitian Creole and in English, so accessible for all those who would be touched by the matter. So hopefully we'll see some coverage from it coming out later today. But yeah, so I wanted to bring that to bring that up, Nick. Another thing that came to mind that I feel we must talk about, and even as we talk about Haitians, it is related. I don't know if you saw an article in the newspaper on Saturday regarding reparations. What do you know about reparations, Nick?
I mean, reparations, well, we all know that us as black people, our ancestors, they were enslaved for many, many years, right? So they gave some money to the slave masters, but the descendants of those slaves are yet to receive any reparations, as you said. So what's up with that?
Well, nothing is up. That's the problem.
Right.
So, yes. So, as you rightfully said, we had this legacy of slavery, and somehow they were able to recognize the losses of the planter class.
Right.
And reimburse them their, what was it, 20 million pounds?
Right.
And they were able to do that. Actually, they just finished in 2015. So all of that time from 1838 till now was how long it took for them to finish repatriating those planter class persons, whilst us slaves and the African nations that were pillaged remain uncompensated. I think that's a huge concern for us. But also it is a concern for CARICOM. I know that back in 2014 or was it 2013, CARICOM had their 10-point plan on responding to this reparations issue. I know one of the things we want to see as a region is a formal apology. That's one of them, because we feel hurt and want to acknowledge someone did something wrong. But also there is that need for reparations, financial reparations that are in line with the losses that these nations would have encountered, and the continuous effect that colonialism and slavery would have had on us. So that is important.
So how would you quantify that?
It is difficult to quantify, but I don't think it is something that is unable to be done. They were able to do it all the way back in the 1800s for the planter class. So I do think that it is a matter of consultation with these nations who would have been affected, finding what their needs are and doing your best to support those needs financially,
to meet those needs,
and help them develop. Now, Nick, I'm going to turn over to you for the fun part of the show. Keep in mind, guys, we're still waiting on a response to our second trivia question. I did get a response for the first one on our Instagram already, but we're waiting for a response for a second trivia question, which was, where did JFJ have its first meeting? So if you put that in the chat or respond on our Instagram, we'll let you know at the end of the show. Over to you, Nick. What do you have to tell the listeners?
So, if you see me, there is a high likelihood that I'm coming to talk about either the run, the 25th, or our Justice for All Expo.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be talking about all of those today.
Okay.
I mean, this year just seems to be a year of a lot of milestones. This is our 95th Let's Talk Justice episode. So we'll be in the 3 digits soon.
Yes.
And then this is also our 25th year. A huge milestone, right?
Absolutely.
So upcoming, you guys should know that we have our Run for Rights 5K run and walk coming up on December 8th, 2024 at the Police Officers Club. All right, so let me just get out the basic facts. So Police Officers Club, December 8th, that's a Sunday. We will be out there early, bright and early at 6:30 a.m. to warm up and set off on our journey. Now, me love the route.
Mm-hmm.
My bias can choose the route, but I love the route. Right?
Well, it's certainly unique. As a 5K runner myself.
It's unique and it's important. It has purpose. So we start off at Police Officers Club. Then we go to King's House Road up to where the Texaco Barbican gas station is. And fun fact, it was there in 1999 at the foot of Jacks Hill where they were having the gas riots, and that was the pivotal moment that led to the forming of Jamaicans for Justice. So we'll be passing through that and we'll be cultivating, that's the word, cultivating, curating is what I want to say, an experience that really brings you through the importantness of what that area signifies. So we go through there, we turn on Ligony Avenue and we go straight up to Hope Road, passing Sovereign, and then we head back straight to Police Officers Club. It sounds like a lot, but it's a regular 5K, and I'm sure if you can walk from downtown to not downtown to Harvard Tree. If you can walk from Crossroads to Harvard Tree, you can do a 5K. Plus, it's for a good cause. Now, as the name suggests, it's Run for Rights. So, of course, we run for other things. ICWI had their breast cancer run last Sunday, and then we also have runs for other causes. But why not have a Run for Rights? So we're doing a very innovative thing, right? So this run is primarily to bring awareness to the different human rights issues. So we have split it up into 4 thematic areas. What are those, Jade? Me tell you.
Okay, so I know that there's general human rights, child rights.
That's right.
Climate justice, gender-based violence.
Full 100. Right.
Wow.
So we have split it up into 4 thematic areas. So now for you, the people registering, by the way, registration is now open and has been open. I'll give you more information on that later. You can choose which cause you want to run in support of. That's nice.
Yeah, man, that's so
nice. That's nice. So if you have a friend group, I look a friend circle, and let's say you guys group up at TGI on a Friday night, you guys can have a conversation. Maybe one friend is more passionate about child rights. Another friend more passionate about climate justice. So all you guys can group up, bring the whole crew, and you represent this. You're running for this cause or walking for this cause. Everyone has they're passionate about being represented, right? So, and I want to say to anybody who is, let me know if I'm coming up on a break, because this might take off. I want to say
have
to
2 minutes.
Okay. I want to say to anybody who is questioning whether, should I be at the Run for Rights? I usually go runs, like, should I make the effort to register and come out to this? I'm here to tell everyone, and I can bet on it, that one of these issues either is or should be important to you. Right? General human rights. Let's take them one by one. General human rights. Yeah, human. We all are afforded these entitlements. So for the very fact that you are a human, you should be a part of that effort to conserve and protect the human rights that we're afforded. Climate justice. for all the persons in Jamaica or the persons in the diaspora, if you have people living in Jamaica, you breathe the air that we breathe. We breathe in the oxygen, breathe out the carbon dioxide. If you have children, if you plan to be here for a while, you want there to be a sustainable environment for the future generations to live and grow in a way, to have a good quality of life.
Absolutely.
Right? And for gender-based and domestic violence, I don't want to say if you have a mother, but we know from the statistics, if you have a mother, if you have a sister, women, they're usually the victims of gender-based and domestic violence. But we also know that men are victims of gender-based and domestic violence too, right? So it's a really important cause for you to come out and support and child rights. If you have a child, you were once a child, right? So it's important for all of us to come out and support what is going to be a very impactful event.
All right. Your passion is selling me, Nick. But we're going to take the break. And when we come back, I'll let you talk about our final event. And we'll give the answers to the trivia question.
Thinking of going overseas to study but have more questions than answers? Attend CupFest 2024, the ultimate education fair at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel on October 29 and 30. Meet with schools from across the world. Explore McGill University, Seneca Polytechnic, University of South Florida, and many others. Receive professional guidance to unlock your next educational move. On-spot applications available. Join them at the Jamaica Pegasus on October 29 to 30 from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Admission is free.
It's the Area Council 1 meeting at the Pembroke Hall Community Center. Tune in to Nationwide at 5 from 6 to 9:30 p.m. on Monday, October 28 for the special broadcast. See you in St. Andrew Northwestern as we hear from Party Leader Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clark, Carl Samuda, Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, Floyd Green, Anne-Marie Vaz, and others. Stay tuned to hear from Meeting Chairman Deputy Leader Desmond McKenzie. So don't miss Nationwide at 5 on Monday, October 28 from 6 to 9:30 p.m. It's the Area Council 1 meeting. Catch Nationwide at 5 at the Pembroke Hall Community Center or tune in to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the West Kingston Constituency Office. Something big is brewing, and the excitement is marinating. A thrilling event will unfold that will have everyone cheering this Christmas. Talents will gather with their knives and prepare themselves for battle. When the dust settles, only one will be left standing to tell the tale. What's at stake? Who will rise and who will falter? You have no idea what's coming next. All your questions will be answered only if you keep your ears tuned to Nationwide 90 FM. This is going to be epic.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We've been having a multifaceted conversation today. It's been a jam-packed show. But Nick was just telling us all about the Run for Rights, and I know he needs to tell you how to register.
Of course. So, you can register by visiting any of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram at JA4Justice. We're also on X at Jamaicans for Justice. And I'm sure if you come on our YouTube, you'll find some way you can look in the link, in the comment section rather, and find the link to register. So if you go on any of our social media platforms, you'll see our flyer and you'll be able to register. Registration for an individual is 2,000 Jamaican dollars, whilst for a team of 20 or more, it's 1,500 per person. So wrangle up your group, your local friend circle, can be a prayer circle, can be your run circle, and come out for a great event. It won't disappoint.
If you're on the YouTube stream right now, you should be able to see your running shirts there for each category. So if that doesn't help,
And them nice.
they're
Nah,
quite
like,
nice.
them nice.
I'm quite jealous of the runners. Unfortunately, I'll be working on the day. I won't be running, but I'm quite jealous of the runners. It looks like it's gonna be a blast.
It will. So now, in addition to the run, we have something else.
Do you?
So on Sunday the 8th, we'll have the run as discussed, but then you will see us again on the 10th of December, Human Rights Day. And where will we be? My tongue. Where will we be, Jay?
So if I remember correctly, we should be at Emancipation Park.
We will be right in the smack dab of Kingston at Emancipation Park, and we will be having our Justice for All Expo. Now, it's a big deal.
Oh,
Everything is a big deal, but this is a big deal too.
okay.
Right? So it won't just be us there. You know, we have a collaborative spirit, so we will be having a lot of our NGO partners and governmental partners there with us, service providers, so you can come and get varying services and information. So, for example, we will be having Jamaica Aid Support for Life there with us, the Integrity Commission. We'll also be having the Bureau of Gender Affairs, as well as a myriad of other partners there joining us on the day.
So hold on, Jamaica Aid Support for Life coming there. So could I get a HIV test if I
You can
come?
get an HIV and syphilis test if you need one, right? You can get information on prevention, on PrEP, if you need one, right?
Oh, okay. So and JFJ will be there as well.
JFJ will be front and center.
So what are we?
Well, we're starting off with the best thing, the most invaluable thing, which is information, right? So the other broader items like the performances, the giveaways, the gift basket, the niceness, that's a brass or something. But the most important and invaluable thing that we'll be giving you is information on your human rights. You can't know too much about your human rights.
True.
And I know you guys probably tired of me saying, you know, we are on the road a lot, and what do people know about their human rights? It's always alarming and surprising, right? So I really urge the Jamaican people to come out to know about your human rights and to own the process. Own the process and take agency to come out, learn more.
So any of your legal practitioners will be there?
Any of my legal practitioners?
Yeah,
of
can
course.
come and ask some legal questions.
Of course. You can. JFJ will be there. I said that already.
Yeah.
So we'll be have our attorneys on staff
Okay,
there.
okay. So it's the whole team.
Whole team. The whole
Okay.
vibe. So because our whole team will be there, we want you to carry your whole team and join us in Emancipation Park from 12 noon to 5 p.m. So we'll be having the vibes all day, giveaways, performances, but most of all, come out to learn about human rights and the importance of that.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, so thank you so much for that, Nick. I hope you guys are fired up for our upcoming events. Don't worry, we won't let you forget about them. We'll be bringing them back up in the next show for sure. But in that spirit, I will give you our response to our trivia question related to our 25th anniversary first. So our 25th anniversary question was, where did JFJ have its first meeting? And our 25th anniversary answer is the Stella Maris Church. So I believe the person that won that was news commentator. My producer can let me know. Okay. So yes, so congratulations again, news commentator, on that. Says yes, Stella Maris, that was our first meeting and was our little meeting place until we were able to formalize Jamaicans for Justice. So
And we've come
congratulations.
a far away, no?
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations on your win. We also have an answer to our trivia question for Let's Start Justice, our normal trivia question, which was today, when was the data protection regulations put in force? And the correct answer for that was the 1st of March 2024. And I believe the winner for that was on Instagram, and that was It's Kimmy. Possible. It's been a while since Kimmy has won. Maybe since we left our last station. But we're glad to see you back on top, Kimmy. Congratulations on that. All right. So I think it's important for us to say before we go, that first meeting at Stella Maris, what was that, 25 years ago? So that's what you're on your expo are about, that 25-year countdown.
So we're just going to go through the different milestones in Jamaican's journey and really reflect on the victories that we've had. We've had many victories on the way. Some, namely,
They're putting me on the spot for some namely what. Well, I mean, for sure, we've seen a lot of legal justice reform, and it's something that we continue to work in. I know that some of you would have seen us, what was it, a month ago with the CRC making our presentations, and even before that in the Parliament continuing to do our advocacy work. So we continue to push.
man, it's a hard journey, it's a hard fight, but it's a necessary fight, and we continue. So we look forward to seeing you guys. I saw a news commentator saying he wish or she wishes, it's a
he.
he wishes that he'll
No,
be
it's a
able to
she.
join us for the run.
It's a she.
So if you can't come news commentator, send someone in your place as a representative. Send 5 in your place. But we encourage you guys to come out for those very big events. You will have a great time for a good cause.
Yeah, no, I do think that's an important thing to say, that if you can't participate, you can sponsor somebody. I know that there are a lot of young people that want to participate. They maybe don't have the extra funds to pay for a registration. No, despite how cheap, very, very cheap, the registration fee is, they still may not be able to make that sacrifice. So if you'd like to do that, you can, of course, register on behalf of another person, and we'll ensure that they're able to run on your behalf. I know my mom, I hope she's listening, but we are expecting her church sisters to be registered. I'm expecting Women of Worth to be there along with the rest of the church. So hopefully you guys are able to give us your fulsome support. So Nick, what did you learn about your data rights today?
My data rights? Well, I learned that, hey, if I want to rectify my information, if I want to know how my information is being used, I can go up and ask. Just that simple. As you described, yes?
Yes, well, certainly there are some procedures that they might expect you to make it in writing. However, if you're unable to make it in writing, somebody can make it for you. If you are a child, you know that your parent or guardian would have to assist. And if you are a person with disabilities in such a way that you are unable to make your own decisions, or there's an issue with your capacity, whoever is your guardian in that sense is also able to do that application on your behalf. But I think what's important is that once you make that application, they have that compliance period of 30 days.
30 days.
To ensure that they rectify that information. And if not, they would have to communicate with you why it cannot be rectified in that time.
Right. And also a very important part, I think, if my information is being misused, I am entitled to some compensation.
Yes, for sure.
Written
If
into the
there are
legislation, which is good.
Yes, if there are breaches under the Act, you can get your personal compensation, but of course there would be those regular legal repercussions, possibly jail time, possibly fines. And I think something that's important to point out, though, is that this Act applies to all institutions that have personal data, and we did say how extensive personal data was, that include just your name and address. So even us at JFJ, our data controllers, when we look at the kind of information that we get from our clients on a routine basis. So we also have obligations under the legislation to ensure data is protected. Importantly, what falls under that too is schools. And we recently did a little presentation to a local school describing their obligations under the legislation and some of the things they should be considering.
So what are some of their obligations?
Well, one thing I want to say that's very important, and the most important thing as data controllers, is data minimization, right? And that is to ensure that you ask for the least amount of data and you give the least amount of data necessary for whatever you're trying to achieve. So if it is that you're giving out the child's report card, but the child also had a psychological evaluation, does that need to be a part of their report card, or is the purpose of the report card to discuss their grades and their performance in class? Right? So that kind of personal data you might want to separate. For example, you might want to ensure that how information is transmitted in school, there are proper procedures there. You don't want your groundsman, for example, to have all of the health information that the nurse has. Or you wouldn't want the nurse to be discussing information, private health information of a child that is irrelevant to the child navigating the school with their teacher or with another personnel in the staff that should not have that data. So those internal mechanisms are extremely important to ensure that you are compliant with the Data Protection Act. Now, I know that we could be talking about this for quite some time, but it suffices to say the legislation is here, the regulations are here. So while we're trying to be compliant, we also want to know what our rights are and be able to take up those rights. So your Information Commissioner is in place, and so is the Commission. So if you needed to make a complaint, you can go there and make that complaint. And they have a pretty extensive website through which you could access more information about the Data Protection Act and a simplified understanding of the provisions in it.
Right, and along with the website, if you want to know more, you can come to the Justice for All Expo.
For sure.
Have that information there
Right,
too.
thank you for that plug, Nick.
Right.
So we're at the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Jade Williams, Policy and Advocacy Specialist at JFJ.
And this is Nicholas Richards, Community Engagement and Outreach Officer. And this has been Let's Talk Justice.
So we'll see you next week, same time.
Jamaicans for justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
JP St. Mary's banana chips. 20% more chips in the banana left on ground. The time by JP St. Mary's banana chips is
2:00.
Are you ready to